My name is Garrett, and I am the founder of Ambition in Motion, and I'm so excited, I'm so grateful to have you here for our first workshop of the spring season. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you've decided to invest in yourself to build a mentoring relationship with someone from your organization so then you can help amplify your own career prospects and opportunities to really help take your career to the next level. I'm so glad, I'm so grateful to have you here, and I'm so glad that you're taking advantage of this and willing to step up and wanting, desire to take yourself and your career to the next level. I'm really excited for you and what you're going to accomplish over these next 4 months. So during this video, I just wanted to give you an overview of what to expect for the program and how to prep for this upcoming workshop. Now, this workshop's title is called Transitioning into a Managerial Role. So maybe you're in your career and maybe you're about to start entering into a managerial role, or maybe you've been a manager for a while, or maybe you're not a manager quite yet, but you will be. This workshop will be extremely insightful for you. You are going to learn a ton about management and how to properly manage somebody and how to not properly manage somebody. If you have any questions throughout this workshop, please post them in the comments section. That we will work towards answering all questions you've got as quickly as we can during the workshop. So if you got any questions at all, please post them in the comments section. We'll try to get them as quickly as you can. We'll be especially checking them within the first 24 hours of this video going live. So if you post those questions right away, we will work on answering them. If you post them like a week later, it might take us a little while to get back to them, but we will answer them. I promise that. I'm very excited for you to get started. So I wanted to give you first an idea of the timeline of the program this spring. So February 11th was the cutoff date to sign up. So glad that you're here. So glad that you've signed up. February 19th, that being tonight, is the first workshop. So pumped about it. All of our workshops are, by the way, going to start at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, and any time in between if you're somewhere in between in the United States. I'm really happy and excited for you to be here. Our second workshop is on March 4th at 8 p.m. And then by March 10th, I would project for you, and by the way, our goal is that you have at least 3 meetings with your mentor over the course of the spring, but ideally you meet more. Ideally you meet more often than that. And to kind of keep with that 3 mentor meeting timeline, our expectation is that by March 10th, you have your first mentor meeting. Now, we will introduce you to your mentor. We actually introduced you to your mentor earlier today. But if you think to yourself, oh, I should wait, or I should wait for this to happen, or I should wait for that to happen, don't. Get on it right away. Build that relationship. I strongly encourage that, because the longer you wait, the more time you're putting off from building a great mentor relationship, and the more time you're putting off from actually really seeing the results and being able to apply what we're teaching in these workshops into your life. So have multiple areas of support. Take advantage of your mentor. Start building that relationship. Now, our third workshop will be on March 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then by March 28th, your goal should be to have had that second mentor meeting if you're following that 3 mentor meeting timeline over the course of the spring. And then our final workshop, the fourth workshop, will be on April 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, those 4 workshops are the first ones on transitioning to a managerial role. The second one is determining when is the right time to pursue additional education, or if it's the right time to pursue additional education. The third workshop is determining when is the right time to switch jobs. And then the final workshop is on how to handle conflict in the workplace. So they're really relevant topics, and I think that you're going to really enjoy these workshops and the guest speakers that we brought in for you to learn from during these workshops. And then you should have your third call with your third conversation with your mentor by April 20th. And by late April, we will send you a post-program assessment to get your feedback. So this workshop is going to be roughly an hour long. And we're going to cover a lot of topics on how to transition into a managerial role. And so for you, my focus is on how can you go about making the most out of this. Really, the best way to go about making the most out of these workshops is to interact with us. When I ask a question to you, the audience viewing this, answer it. Post your answer in the comment section. If you've got any questions about anything at all for either myself or our guests, post it in the comment sections. We will get to it. That helps us know that you are there, because here's the thing. I would rather you post your questions in the comment section, because if you got this question, I guarantee you somebody else in the audience does as well. So if we were to answer questions on an individual private basis, we're not really answering everybody's questions. But if you post your questions in the comment section, we can share this with everybody so then they can get their answers just like you got your answer. So please post your questions in the comment section. So during this workshop, we're going to cover how to transition into a managerial role, how to achieve success in this program, and how you can begin working towards your goal with your mentor. This program doesn't guarantee you a promotion or a new job. Really, the key is this program's for professionals who want to take their career to the next level. Like, we don't hand things out on a silver platter. Now, by the way, do these types of opportunities happen for the professionals that use this program? Absolutely. But you got to be open to it. You got to be willing to put your time in to go ahead and make the most out of this experience. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm going to come in negatively or skeptically, you're going to get negative and skeptical results. I mean, it's the law of attraction. If you come in with a negative mindset, you're going to manifest a negative mindset. If you come in with a positive mindset, you're going to manifest a positive mindset. It's all about how you view this system, this workshop, this opportunity. So come in with the right idea, with the right mindset, and you can make the most out of this experience. I promise that. So I just want to set the expectation properly. This is a program that does not hand out things on a silver platter. If you work for them, you can absolutely take your career to the next level, but it's about applying them. It's about actively meeting with your mentor. It's about actively networking and actually doing what you can to make the most out of this experience. Ask questions, interact, take advantage of everything we've got for you, and you will get the opportunities you desire. I mean, that's what this program's here for. If you think like, oh, I'm going to do the bare bones minimum, I'm just going to kind of have just 3 phone calls and, we'll keep them at the minimum length of time, and I'm just going to attend the workshop, not take any notes, not really make any comments, not really talk to anybody about what I'm learning, you're going to get those types of outcomes. That's pretty much it. So I really want to encourage you to make the most out of this program. Take advantage of it. Ask questions, participate, and interact, respond. So, the way I like to think about this is, treat this program as fuel. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning, going strong, going hard, this program can help you get into the next level and accelerate. If you're barely burning a fire, barely burning an ember, and you really want to rekindle that and get yourself up, take advantage of it, jump in. But if you think to yourself, you know what, I'm barely burning this ember, I'm not really trying to burn this ember, really there's nothing there, the fuel can only do so much for you. So the point I'm making is come in with an open mind and a willingness to work hard, and you can achieve what you want. I mean, have professionals use this program to gain a managerial role or negotiate a raise or build deep bonds with their colleagues or expand their networks. Absolutely. But did those outcomes come handed on a silver platter? No, they didn't. It's about how you can apply what you're learning in this workshop to make the most out of this experience. So I want to share with you a little bit about my background, because I think that helps give some context as to who I am, what we're teaching, what we've learned, and why this information is relevant. So for me, I personally needed mentors in my life. And this might sound crazy, but from age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. At the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department, and I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school, and I had no idea really what I was going to do with my life. It hit my life like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then you just kind of find yourself, like as if it's puberty, it just comes and hits you. And nobody that I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. So I either had to accepting a failure or redefine my definition of success. So I chose the latter. And it was a great decision for me. Kind of like back to the whole law of attraction thing. I opened my mind to what positively could happen from this situation as opposed to negatively. So I enrolled in a program in St. George, Utah after I got in trouble. And they exposed me to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, they were huge. I mean, they helped me come to grips with how I'd affected my family, my friends, my university, my country. I really didn't think that what I had done really would impact anybody or that anybody would care. And that was so wrong. And I really don't ever want to discount the power of personal mentors, because personal mentors can really help you make some serious just strides and have some serious growth in your life, because ultimately those personal mentors can help see you for you. And don't get me wrong, the professional mentors are amazing as well. And by the way, we can mix those two. They can both be personal and professional mentors. But I really want to stress the importance of being vulnerable in a mentoring relationship, just like I've been vulnerable with you right now sharing my story, because I know that when you're vulnerable, you're much more likely to be attractive in that relationship. You're much more likely to build trust. I mean, shoot, you can't even build trust without vulnerability. You have to have vulnerability. So when it comes to building a mentor relationship, I hope me sharing my story with you has helped inspire you to be vulnerable with your mentor and in your mentoring relationship. And just to kind of finish out my story in terms of how I actually got here from being a drug dealer who moved to St. George, Utah, About a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago for the weekend to let my family know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. I took a keen interest in who he is. I asked him questions. I took down notes, shared with him a little bit about me, but really I was focused on who he was and asking him questions and really learning about what he had to say, because people love to talk about themselves. I was learning that through a book I was reading called Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And by the time we landed, he said, oh, by the way, I'm the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And he offered me an internship doing financial analysis on the spot. Didn't care about my background. He decided to take me under his wing and give me an opportunity, and that was so crucial. That was amazing. He didn't care that I might be going to prison sometime in the future. He didn't care really what my future looked like. He cared about me, and he wanted to give me a chance, and that was so crucial. It helped me really take some serious strides in my life and my career. About a year after living in Utah, I actually got very lucky. While I was in Utah, I started a nonprofit to help young men and women who had made poor choices with drugs and alcohol and help them get mentors too, just like I had gotten mentored by that guy at SkyWest Airlines. And the court system saw that. They ended up dropping my felonies to a misdemeanor conviction. Indiana University had decided to re-enroll me, and I started Ambition in Motion with the idea of how can I help people get connected with their careers. I mean, ultimately for me, my vision is a world where the vast majority of people, not a couple people, but the vast majority of people are excited to go to work. When they're there, their expectations meet reality, and when they come home, they feel fulfilled. I'm here to try to help you achieve that. That's all I do, is to help serve you to get you to where you want to be in your career. Because the more satisfied you are with your career, the better of a society we live in, and the more happy society is, the better everybody's lives are. I don't know. That's just my way of trying to make an impact on the world. And, you know, if you're going through this right now as a professional and you're thinking to yourself, like, what is my impact on the world? You know, it could be anything. But I think if you're consciously aware of that and think to yourself, I want to make an impact on the world, that's a great starting point. So the point is, be vulnerable and think about your impact, especially as it pertains to your story. Now, I want to talk about 3 keys to success for this program. The 3 keys to success for this program are honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. Your state is number 1. Physically, what is your state? Like your physiological state. Are you like amped up? Are you ready? Are you good to go? Are you in such a good mood that you're going to take on the world? Or are you stressed out, hunched over your computer, got bad posture, not feeling great? I mean, your first impression is everything. And when you're going into your mentor meeting, or a meeting with anybody for that matter, and you're coming in with some bad body language, I can promise you, you are not going to have a good first impression, and that will kill that relationship. It is very difficult to overcome a bad first impression. So, fortunately, there are some things that you can do to help you get yourself into a positive state. And they take like 30 seconds because your emotions drive your emotions. Now, you might have had the worst day in the world, and you might be thinking to yourself like, oh man, I gotta meet my mentor right now. I don't know how I can do this. Here's something you can do to get yourself into a positive state. There's a lot of things you can do. You can do a power pose. You can fake smile for 30 seconds. You could fake laugh for 30 seconds. But what I like to do is I like to shake it out, and I like to dance it out, and I like to scream at the top of my lungs. So what I want you to do right now while you're watching this video, and I know it might sound crazy, you might be in your house, you might be in your office, you might be at work, I don't really care. Stand up, shake it out, shimmy it loose. Stand out. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah, just let it loose, let it out, let it go. And the reason why I'm telling you to do this is because you are releasing endorphins to your brain, getting blood flowing to your brain. What this does is it gets you into a positive mood. It takes you from wherever you're at and puts you at a 10. It gets you ready to go. And your physical body, your physiology, your body is saying, thank you. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to take on the world. Your state is crucial. So when it comes to a mentor meeting, get your state right. You're going to give a positive first impression if you get your state right. If you're screaming at work, good for you. Amazing. I'm proud of you. That's awesome. You know, people might think of you and look at you like a weirdo, but that's okay because this is not a coolness contest. This is about you making strides in your career and getting a positive first impression with your mentor and with anybody that you want to meet. Now, the second key is your story. Now, what's a story that you tell yourself? Do you tell yourself a story for why you won't be successful or for why you will be successful? I mean, your story could be, oh, well, you know, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking or putting myself out there or trying to get a raise or try to be a manager because, you know, I'm just an introvert. Or maybe you think to yourself, like, I'm an extrovert. I'm crazy around people. I can't even handle it. I'm a word vomiter. I just can't even contain myself around other people. I couldn't possibly be good at networking or in a managerial position. If you tell yourself a story for why you will not be successful, you will not be successful. But if you tell yourself a story for why you can be successful, you can manifest that outcome. If you tell yourself a story, if you literally play in your mind how a situation could go the most positive way it could possibly go, you will get yourself to where you want to be. So I want to ask you right now, and I would love if you could post in the comment section, what is a story that you tell yourself for why you will be successful? Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? How are you going to do that? Lay out your story of where you're going. It could be the next 3 months. It could be the next year. I don't really care. But put it out there for how you're going to be successful. Share it with the world. Share it with your community here, because what that does is it empowers other people to be vulnerable and share their story as well. I'd love if you could share your story of where you want to go in the comment section. Now, the last key is your strategy. So what is the strategy that you're going to do to help you get to where you want to be? Now, this workshop is all about how to transition into a managerial role. So the strategy is going to be all about how can you go about becoming a better manager. Now, take the skills that we're teaching in this workshop with our guest speaker. Take these skills and apply them. One of the things that I love to do when it comes to strategy is to set up a routine. So what is something that you can do on a regular basis to help you reinforce this skill that you're learning in this workshop? Because if you're just here in this workshop and you're just watching this video and maybe you're taking notes, like that might stick. But if you actually teach it to somebody else, that is definitely going to stick. Exponentially, you are much more likely to remember the information that you're taught if you teach it to somebody else. So what I want you to do when it comes to strategies, I want you to take what you're learning during this workshop and I want you to apply it and teach it to somebody else. This could be a friend, it could be a stranger. I don't really care. But teach something that you learned that you thought was impactful and powerful to you. I love if you could do that, because if you can, you're going to reinforce this information, and this program, this workshop, this whole experience is going to be so much more powerful to you because you are reinforcing what you are learning. So the way that you can practice, find an accountability partner, teach them the skills that you are learning, something that you learned. And it could be anything. Like whatever nugget of wisdom that you heard from me or from our guest, teach that to somebody else. That will help you reinforce it. Now, like I said, if you've got any questions about anything that I mentioned or anything our guest mentions, please post that in the comment section. We will do our best to answer those within 24 hours of you posting them, especially if you post them within 24 hours of this video airing. If you post after that, we might be a little bit delayed on that, but post them within 24 hours. We will get to answering them. Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited for you to embark on your mentor relationship. And in this mentor program, I'm really excited to get started with our guest speaker. So I am so excited to have our guest here this evening. Our guest is Nicole Martin. And when we're talking about transitioning into a management role, Nicole is someone who's got extensive experience in that. Nicole is the Chief Empowerment Officer at HR Boost. And essentially what that means is she delivers turnkey HR solutions for businesses, especially across Chicago, but really across anywhere. She helps businesses thrive. She helps build culture. She helps manage her team as well as help teams manage their own people. Needless to say, she has extensive experience with managing people and seeing how management is done. Nicole, thank you so much for being here on our workshop.
Thank you so much, Garrett. It's my absolute privilege to do this with you because I love just casual shop talk and making it real for people, who are looking for advisement. And it's a pleasure to be a fan of Ambition in Motion. So I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. So, the topic of our workshop this evening is on how to transition into a management role. And so when it comes to, management, I would love to learn if really, why is transitioning into management so difficult in your perspective?
Well, I think it's so difficult because it's really transformed in recent years, right? Someone like me who's come up through the latter perspective of growth, which was all old school, where you had to pay your dues and just pay time and service through years to accelerate to being management, versus the current state of everything right now in 2020, it's much more a career lattice. What is the roadmap and how I can grow, and what are those competencies so that I can become a leader and a manager very early in my career? And why? Because of the talent emergency, which is many businesses are promoting the younger people that come into businesses into manager roles even before they've had maybe the time per se to be trained or invested in from a management perspective. But at the same point in time, Their opportunity is now, and leadership actually is something that comes from character, which may be innate in them, not something that they've been groomed for per se. So it's a complete paradigm shift in terms of management and what it takes to get there, or how tough it is.
I love that. That's a really interesting and a unique point. Yeah, it's such a weird, crazy paradigm shift that I had not considered yet. So I think that's a really cool point that you brought up. But what are your thoughts on, I mean, I know that sometimes what I'll see quite often is when people transition into a management role, one of the bigger issues I see, at least like right off the bat on like a micro level, is that they typically got promoted into this management role because they were a good individual producer. So if you were a great salesperson, all of a sudden you're the sales manager. Those are two totally different roles. And sometimes what I will see is, you'll see typically, like sometimes I'll see two things happen. Either one, someone like overcompensates and just is over the top empathy, where, you know, as what Kim Scott would say in her podcast, Radical Candor, ruinous empathy, meaning that you are trying to just be like the cool guy, the cool manager, the cool person, like I understand everything that's going on. Or they run their team like a drill sergeant, like they expect everyone to be just like they were in terms of being a producer. And sure, you know, they produce the results, but you know, no one's really happy. No one really likes this manager. I don't know. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Yes, well, and I think what's interesting, if you take the sales manager, for example, somebody who was the producer or the highest producer in the business, it's typical in all functional areas of business where somebody was just the best at what they did in that seat. And there's kind of a misnomer, kind of just presumption about the fact that that person who's the best at what it is they do that day, going into management then and leading others and grooming others. Because what happens is, the old school theories of management was that we would, and I'm going to say this out loud, when I was in my grad program, right? Plan, you know, monitor, control. It's like old school. That's what the 4 components would be, so to speak. I said 3 of them, but still, it's not that. Managers need to be able to, you know, trust build, skill build, brand build, these other competencies, if you will, that are different than cognitive. Cognitive would be, I'm sales, or I'm the CFO, or I'm an engineer, I'm the lead tech. Those are cognitive abilities. But management makes you dive deeper into something we can grow in forever, which is your emotional intelligence. Because let's be honest, you don't manage people. Managers come in thinking, I manage people. You can't ever manage people. We manage processes, and people manage themselves to processes. That managers can ultimately develop and control processes, because people only run to their own vibration, let's be honest, what they're motivated against and how success is defined. So the process that is measuring something, what's that metric? If you think you manage people, good luck.
That was gold. Can you say that one more time? Just said. I want like everybody to hear it. I like sometimes like when people are watching this, they're like, oh, ho hum, whatever, you know. But I want you to reiterate what you just said.
Right. Management is about managing processes that people can adopt, can align to, and understand what the definition of success is. Because everybody, I believe, goes to work trying to be successful. But you cannot manage people. You can only lead, guide, coach, inspire people to become better. But ultimately, if you think you're managing people, like you gave an example of kind of old school management styles, which is tell people what to do and they'll do it. That is not going to succeed in today's world or in the talent market at all. And any business that's still training managers to run that way will find that they don't have type A talent in their business. And that's a scary thing for a lot of businesses right now, because really it would be much more where I'm meeting the talent as their manager. I don't manage people again. Remember, I manage processes. And it would be more like, I observed, maybe there's a variance to how they performed. And why is that? Then listening, getting perspective, emotional intelligence, and then plugging in to help this person meet the requirement that's expected.
I love that. I love that. So I would love to jump in. Can you share with us, can we like jump into story time?
Sure, I mean,
a story
I can
of,
try.
Yeah, well, I'd love to learn a story of a time that you've seen both good management and bad management. I'd love to like kind of like dive into maybe two stories that you have, where one was an example of this person was a great manager, he or she did an awesome job. Here's an example of bad management where he or she did a really bad job, and here's why.
Yeah, I can think of two of those. Yeah. So typically, let's start with, do you want to go to the bad one first?
Let's do the good one first.
Okay, so the good one. Ultimately, sometimes people are coming into organizations at the management level, and sometimes this happens where they're brought in from the outside, not grown from within the organization. And there's kind of this grace period where the new leader's always analyzing their team and deciding who's on the bench and what the bench strength is. And so I was in a high growth, growth organization essentially that was scaling and growing. And this is where we brought in outside leaders, new management level kind of top line that would take the business from maybe 10 million to 20 million, right? So it's a growth opportunity. And sometimes you need outside skills to come and see how we take it forward. Because sometimes when people come from within, they may not be that visionary or innovative in bringing new solutions to the table. So sometimes you have to go outside the organization and bring those talented individuals in. And what happens is, in this good situation that I saw, we had a situation where a long-term employee who'd always been there, things are always that way, this is how it's done, would have to adopt and work under this new leader. And that's a challenge for anybody. I think it's an unknown framework. And in this situation, the person was going down a typical path of corrective action called a performance improvement plan in traditional HR language. And the performance improvement plan is about sitting down somebody and letting know that they're not meeting expectations. And it can be on a 30, 60, 9-day timetable where we sit down, confer, have feedback, are we doing better, et cetera, and negotiate that. But typically, performance improvement plans are seen by a lot of people as ineffective and really just you're trying to manage somebody out of the organization, right? And managers who lead, processes but think they manage the people, they're stuck with these dynamics. So this person was going through that. We sat down with this person. The manager could have ultimately thought, yes, I'm just managing this person out of the organization because they're ineffective in what it is I'm asking them to do. I partnered with that person, though, to let them know that we could move around this with the framework of that 3-step process that I kind of just shared with you, which is I expect, but I observe. And why is that? Instead of you're doing this and you're not doing this and you're not doing that, right? Because we're not you diagnosing, we're not doctors. So when you come back to the I language, I expect, I taught him and worked with him to coach him through that conversation. And the goodness of this is that it bridged two people who were not communicating clearly to one another. This person didn't understand they weren't meeting expectations because they didn't even understand the expectation because it was never communicated clearly.
Yeah.
Right? So get them talking and the manager to listen to this employee's perspective and all the reasons they're behaving the way they are, all the reasons they're not doing what they're doing or the way they're maneuvering. And after the manager could hear all of that, he had some understandings of some things, some shortcomings and some miscommunications that he needed to step up and maybe communicate more about to other people even that weren't in the room. And this individual who was being put on the PIP, I let them know that this is an opportunity, discipline, it's about teaching. This is about communication. I call this more of a counseling session, not a disciplinary session, not like performance improvement because you're doing something wrong, but let's improve communication between the two of you so that we can bridge better. And the softness of that, the invitation of that, and the listening components of that through the 2 to 4, 6 week period that we walked, this individual who literally would have been out of the organization had we not approached it that way, they lasted, went through it, conformed, came back, and stood up as a leader and were no longer on a performance improvement plan after that 6 week period. And most situations that I see being executed on, those people are managed out. So it was a good outcome to show, never go into that meeting and diagnose the outcome. Go into that meeting as an invitation and believe in people and give people the opportunity to hear what's going on, what your needs are, and give it hope and faith that, yeah, we're going to meet and bridge and communicate clearly to one another, speak the same language, maybe not, but choose to meet in the middle. And a good outcome could happen. Somebody can change, believe it or not. We can grow forever in our emotional intelligence again.
That's a great story, Nicole. That really,
a good one.
That's a really good story. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to take a quick moment, a quick break. I want to ask the audience, I think it's really easy to rag on bad management. It's like easy to commiserate about, oh, this manager sucks or this person's horrible or whatever. But I want to ask you to post in the comment section, can you tell me a story, a time that you feel like you had a great manager and what that manager did to make you feel great, that you felt like they did a good job? Because I think if we can start thinking about the positive, we can start really focusing on a paradigm for where we want to uplift ourselves to, as opposed to, saying, oh, this person's horrible, this person's garbage, whatever, they're the worst, they made me feel bad or whatever. talk about the positive. So I would love, if you're watching this workshop right now, I'd love if you could post in the comment section a time that you felt like you've experienced good management. So Nicole, what I really loved about that story was the fact that it wasn't about you did this bad, which feels more like an attack. It was more of, hey, this is what I observed. And when you talk, it kind of seems to follow like that whole notion of like observation, feeling, need, request, the whole like keys to nonviolent communication. In a sense that is so powerful, because observations are essentially, you can't deny them. They are undeniable. It's like, this is what I observed. Do you disagree? Like, this is what physically happened. Like, if, for example, if, let's say if I'm in a conversation with a manager and I feel like he or she interrupted me 3 times during the conversation, my observation could be like, hey, so here's one thing I observed. I was talking and then I observed that you interrupted me 3 times during this conversation. That's, if you did it, you can't really deny it because it happened. And it's less of an attack and it's more of a statement of fact, which I think is a lot less personal and a lot more, this is what it is.
Right. Because we all have the right to our I voice. And a lot of people go out talking in a you voice instead of an I voice, if that makes sense. So when you're saying it's an observation, everyone has the right to how they feel. Everyone has the right to what they observe in their perception. The important thing is helping somebody bridge to understanding how you're seeing it through your eyes. And if they see it differently, and then meeting in the middle on that. And most people don't give it that chance to just stop and pause. And so the observation share is really important, because the person who you're talking to may have never, ever observed it from that perspective or that light. And so you're bringing them into the vision that you have. It could be different. They observe something different also. But the idea is don't just go into something assuming they see it the way you do.
That's so true. I feel like so often when I talk with people, when they say, hey, I've got a bad manager, or I hate my colleague, or my coworker is always out to sabotage me, I would care to argue, and I see this in entrepreneurship quite often, where I'll talk to an entrepreneur and he or she will say, hey, I've got this idea, but I don't want to tell anybody because I think someone's going to steal it. It's like, nobody's got the time for that. Or like when you're in a workplace setting, you think someone's sabotage you, who's got time for that? Like, people don't sit at their desk all day thinking about how they can make your life more miserable. They're thinking about their own lane and what is most convenient in their own lane. Now, they may not be aware that this disrupts you, but for you to assume that they're doing this to purposefully sabotage you is crazy. And that's back to the entrepreneurship thing. It's like, if you assume someone's going to drop everything that they've got going on in their life to start to steal your idea, you're nuts. You're absolutely crazy. And the idea that you have on its own merits is probably not that great. But the culmination of everybody else's insight helping you with that idea could be awesome. And by the way, the culmination of getting that feedback, of putting your feelings and emotions out on the table to say, hey, this is how I feel about when you do this thing. You can actually get feedback about, you didn't even realize that was possible. And you could be a whole lot less stressed and having anxiety at the workplace and a lot happier with your work.
Absolutely. Well, and I think everybody at Age for Boost, we believe that people deserve joy and purpose through their work, through their cognitive gifts, and putting them to performance and service to others. And so I think what's interesting is you asked for kind of a bad story too. And I think one that immediately came to mind in the context of management is everybody strives to grow in their career, whatever it might be. And when they finally achieve that position, if you will, and titles are cheap as far as I'm concerned, but I think people could achieve a title of something where they feel they've accomplished something within their career. And I've witnessed this, and promotion from within is a real opportunity. And I actually think that most businesses should be growing their own talent, investing in their talent, making talent, and then growing it within. The challenge comes when somebody doesn't effectively rise from like the peer group into the management tier, and they have a hard time emotionally coaching maybe people that they maybe were friends with, if that makes sense, before, or peer group with. And so the unfortunate situation I've witnessed is a gentleman that had to go through that, and similar to kind of where you began, where they're technical, they are the expert at the technical knowledge. And sometimes people think that they have to, once you rise to the management position, you take on this responsibility, you want to excel, you want to do well, you want to be perceived as a good manager. And if it's right at the higher ranks within an organization, in this particular situation, this person reported directly to the CEO, it's important for people to understand that people want you to have transparency and be proactive about communication. And the buffering that goes on within organizations, when you're in management, sometimes you act as a buffer, which means you're a liaison role between one tier of management and another. And some people get into politics and they don't share information, or they choose who they're going to align with, and people do this naturally. But in this situation, he was put in a really high position in terms of contribution, opportunity, and visibility. And the CEO was not getting the information from this person that things were being done, what's happening. And what happens is, the worst thing you can do in management is not proactively communicate. I don't think that you can communicate enough if you're in a management seat. And in this particular situation, the person was not communicating proactively. And when I got deep into the understanding between the two gentlemen, it was really because the person who was in the management leadership position was wanted to prove that he could handle the employees and didn't want to bother his manager with things that were going on. He thought it was his job to take care of those things. What happened, though, it created a level of a lack of trust from the CEO. The CEO was thinking things were being kept secret. I didn't know about those things. He made decisions and didn't loop me in. And so it was felt much more like sabotage to the CEO, who'd given him the kind of keys to the business, and this individual was feeling left out and not communicated to. What's so sad is that he never could wrap his head around sharing that and sharing things proactively. And why am I telling him everything? What's the point of telling him everything? It's like I'm asking for permission, and it's not about that at all. It was really about just CC the boss and BCC the boss and make sure they know what's going on so that they can sleep at night and they know you've got it covered. But leaving them out of it, no news is not good news.
That's a really good story. I love that you gave that management story from the perspective of the highest manager, because even at the end of the day, I would still care to argue it's still the CEO's fault. Like, no matter what, like, the CEO promoted this manager, but did not clearly communicate to that manager that he needed to communicate back to him all the things that he wanted to have communicated to. Right. So his feelings of like this person was trying to sabotage me or go behind my back are really his own doing. It's kind of like, you set up a process, kind of like what you said before about you don't manage people, you manage process. He set up a process that was ineffective and not clear.
Right. And also what comes with that is we all define management differently, or the expectations of management, or what leadership is also a very debated subject. I mean, there's probably 100 books you could list right now that are talking about what leadership is. And so in every business, it's really important that they define what leadership is in that business, and that they have a common language around it. And if transparency or communication happens to be one of those values, then we need to define how that's lived within our organization. And so the CEO absolutely could have some culpability to the outcome in that. And that would show that what's needed within management is some vulnerability, right? And there's a lot going on talk about vulnerability, but it's okay to say that you're not the smartest person in the room. It's okay to say, I don't know, and to rely on the team. And there's a great thought leader out there, JP Polly-Fry, who I follow, who's the founder of the Institute in Health of Human Potential out of Canada. Amazing work they're doing. But really the most important thing he ever shared was how important it is for somebody to learn, unlearn, and relearn, and be okay with learning, unlearning, and relearning. Not saying, I've got it, I'm the smartest person in the room. It's about being resourceful and moving through things, because everybody knows change is inevitable. So yeah, this person just being vulnerable, right, Garrett? I think he couldn't say to the person, look, I need you to copy me on everything, not because I don't trust you, and not because I don't, it's going to bury my inbox, right? But because I'm a skimmer, I need to see it, and I sleep better at night knowing that you've got it covered. And I just would like to see that so that I can get to that place where I let go.
I love that you laid out that whole story like that, because I was just about to ask you, can vulnerability play a role in management? And it sounds like, based on what you're saying, it does. And in fact, it almost makes me think of a story. My best friend works for a large tech startup. They're getting to the point where they're not even a startup anymore. They've raised, they're on round J or something like that.
That's awesome.
So the company's doing well. They got a ton of employees, but in the early days of their startup, their CEO went to everybody in the company and said, hey, right now, from an operational efficiency perspective, we are here and we need to be here. And if we are not able to get here within the next 6 months, I don't know if we're going to be able to have a sustainable business. I don't know if we're going to have our doors open. I'm just going to be transparent. Like, this is what our investors are telling us. And for us to get a next round, which would mean that we could make payroll, which means that we could like allow us to consistently exist and grow, we need to be here. And those were numbers that not only had they not ever hit before, but they were like double what they were already doing.
Of course, yeah.
And my best friend had said that vulnerability from the CEO really inspired everybody. Everybody was on the same page, like as opposed to, you know, the CEO being a rah, like everything's going amazing, like we're great and everything's going awesome. He just said, hey, this is where I don't actually know what the next step is. And I felt like that really opened my eyes to like how powerful being vulnerable in management can be.
Absolutely. Well, and it's honesty, it's transparency, it's communication, but it's also just being really real and open about business. Some people really want to have their handprint on what's going on within the business they devote their blood, sweat, and tears to. And honestly, you spend so much time at work, you better love it, right? And it's hard to keep the love going, even through growth, chaos. There's chaos through a high growth business. There's lots of unanswered questions. Things are happening and moving fast. And what happens is by the CEO doing what he did, by your friend doing that, he really opened up that that's okay. It's okay to not know. And it's okay to say we're all in this together. And the minute you put out that kind of culture invitation, people feel party to what's going on. They know their work is valued. They know whatever they do right now is going to affect the outcome. And that's powerful and empowering to the person that comes there every single day. Back in the recession in 2008, 2009, I worked for an entrepreneur who scaled the business pretty big, kind of like what you're living and witnessing through your friend. And we had to dismantle the business through the recession, 2008, 2009. And I remember, and at that time, we were on a winner's list. We were best place to work, right? We were just a tremendous organization. And it's really hard stuff. And you would think we never could still be recognized for our culture metrics or being a best place to work while you're having layoffs, reductions in force, pay freezes, you know, things like this. And we still stayed on the winners list for 2 years post all of that. Because why? Because everyone was in it to win it. Everyone felt the journey. Everyone knew that their work mattered. Everyone knew the strategy. They knew what we had to do. And they'd show up on Saturdays just to hit it, because not because it was mandatory and because the boss said they had to be there on Saturday to make those shipments, but because they wanted it to make it just like that entrepreneur did. And that's because that conversation was happening. That invitation had been expressed. If we do not express ourselves openly with that vulnerability and the excitement, even the ride, the opportunity of challenge. Some people love the challenge and love to get their hands dirty. And if we don't share that, well, then it's boring and I'm not valued here. And what work can I do here? Gosh, and next thing you know, your A talent is out the door. For all you know, they got a shingle across the street. I mean, they're not going to stick around for boredom, monotony.
That's a great story about vulnerability. I love that.
Yeah.
So Nicole, I'd love to talk about feedback for a minute. What is your thoughts on the important, I guess there's a lot of things that we can talk about with feedback. I think to get started, what are your thoughts on balanced feedback? By that, I mean, balancing the positive with the negative. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that question. The positive with the negative. So first of all, I don't believe in negative weakness fixing. We'll start there. Weakness fixing is a lost cause. I think that if we really believe that people want to have joy and purpose in their work, we have to look at our employees or the people that work with us and for us as talent, no matter where they're at on their journey. Because as parents, and I have the opportunity to be a mother, your parents, for example, looked at you when you were little and said, what a gift. And certainly saw your gifts early in life, your cognitive gifts, and certainly thought that they were amazing. And then you show up at work one day and it's like, everybody forgot that. It's like, well, I'll show up to work and forget that people have gifts. They actually have cognitive gifts. Somebody could have a parachute that opens in their brain that will never open in your brain. And guess what we need? We need the person that's almost the opposite of us on that team so we can solve problems together. Shared creation, collaboration. So I just feel like if you're thinking about positive feedback, negative feedback out the gate, let's not even go there. Feedback is really about how we come together to make one another better. So if you're thinking about traditional positive and negatives, I would take the negative connotation away completely, first of all. And I would start with a baseline. I believe in baseline data. So like for my own team, for example, we do leadership success exchanges. They're literally called leader success exchanges. I come with a baseline assessment that asks them a rating table of everything that I would expect them to be able to answer if I consider them to be a leader in my business. And that's not even a management thing. That's called leaders wherever you stand. Wherever you stand in the business, you're a leader, and I want to empower you to do better. And so the first thing that they have to know is a lot of information. You have to set them up for success, right? If you're a manager. And so to set them up for success, I literally would start with a baseline of what do you know? What do I have to teach you, right? Once I know what I have to teach you, then you can talk about what would you like to learn? How could we make this happen for you? And you can break that down into yearly conversation or quarterly conversation or resources. Like some could be internal, it could be experiential learning things that we talk about, we facilitate. It could be about resources and things they want to do outside the organization to access information. But the whole idea is to expedite learning. And so in order to expedite learning, we have to understand what we don't know. And also what that person wants to learn and how they want to grow. And that's what's transformed people from career ladder framework to lattice framework, as I call it. And the career lattice is really a manager's job to sit down and say, here's how you can grow here. Where would you like to go? How can I help you get there?
Yeah, I love what you had to say about everybody's a leader, or everyone can be a leader within their company. Actually, I wanted to take a moment to ask the audience who's watching this right now, can you tell us a story? Can you share in the comment section a way that you've led in your own business, in your own company, even if you're not a manager, even if you're not in the highest management role, or even if you're not a manager of people at all? How have you been a leader? What are some things that you've done in your workplace that have really conveyed leadership qualities at work? I love if you could post that in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that.
I love that too.
So Nicole, I want to then
leaders. Go ahead, Garrett. I was just going to say, the thing about leadership is that sometimes leaders emerge in businesses. And what I mean by that is that you can have a title, but it could really mean nothing, honest. When businesses are growing and there's pain points and there's challenges, it can be the one person that everybody thought had no experience, no skills, and they're the ones who are just like showing up every day, learning, finding the problems, connecting the dots. And when they find that, and they lastly priceless experience, to be quite honest, and they come informed, they're more agile in the business and viable across revenue streams and all of that. And once you can bring that to the table, you are valuable. You have some lens that you could provide solutions, and sometimes it can come from the strangest places within an organization that people wouldn't expect. But when that person actually speaks and they've done the stakeholder alliance, influence, and learning at all levels, and then they come up with like an aha presentation or moment, people will notice. And they will notice what? They'll say you're a leader. You can come from anywhere.
That's really cool. I love that story.
Yeah.
Now, back with feedback, can non-specific feedback be damaging?
Absolutely, because it just leaves people in the gray. Nobody wants to be in the gray. I think that's where okay, so this is where leadership and management and anybody who's on either side of that table, so to speak, is about self-advocacy. And self-advocacy is making sure that you understand what the person who's talking to you said and kind of reiterate it so that they know how you heard it. And if you don't have the information to make it clear for you on what you need to do or what's expected, well, then you need to keep asking questions and be comfortable with asking the questions that you need so that you can be successful. And that's self-advocacy. Don't wait for somebody to tell you. Go asking the questions you need in order for you to plug in, if that makes sense. I ended up where I am in my business and everything because I asked tough questions. And then people are like, oh, that is a good question. And next thing you know, you're advocating self-advocacy so that, because I can't do HR, for example, if I don't know the strategy of a business. And sometimes you walk in businesses and they don't have a strategy. So then we have to start there. Even though it may not be HR strategy, I need your strategy to plug into it. So that's relationship in any kind of dynamic of business. Sometimes you have to go in learning first from any angle.
I love that. That's really cool. So the next question I had back on the topic of feedback is, can non-immediate feedback be damaging? Like, what's the importance of giving feedback immediately as opposed to waiting on it?
Well, if you don't do it immediately or as close to when something occurs, it's irrelevant. It becomes irrelevant. I don't live 3 months ago, do you? I mean, and sometimes, I don't know about you too, I'm busy. I'm sure you're busy, right, Garrett? We get buried with stuff. And if something happened today and then you don't sit me down for a couple weeks or a couple months, I'm sort of like, what? Why didn't you talk to me then? And so that's the thought process that goes through anybody who's being talked to about something that didn't happen right now that's relevant. Forget the conversation. You lost traction, street cred, credibility, the whole thing. Like, it's not even relevant anymore.
Totally. I totally agree with you, and that makes a ton of sense. So that really, I think, kind of nicely diverges in this next question about managing up. Can you give feedback to your manager? Can you give feedback to your boss? Is there a way that you could go about properly and respectfully giving your manager feedback?
Absolutely. And that's more of art than science. It takes a lot of emotion intelligence to become the weaver, as I say. So if you wanted to be the weaver and you wanted to manage up, you've got to learn to weave. And what I mean by that is you have to learn how to maneuver and speak to people, build relationships, right? You have to build relationships in such a way that you create influence and advocacy and buy-in around what it is that you're trying to do, so that you're not the only disruptor. I think giving something where you're trying to do that, it's just really important to build buy-in where you're not the only person that's advocating, if that makes sense. And to do it upwards, some people are really open to just telling somebody how it is. I call them chief challengers. I've actually published a terminology called chief challengers, and every CEO deserves a chief challenger, someone who's a truth talker. These people are like unfiltered and they just tell you how it is. Sometimes they come across as maybe jaded or bitter or whatever it is, but guess what? You're always going to get the truth out of their mouth, and it's not going to be sugar-coated. Chief challenging is something that's important in business, as long as they can build respect and be kind to others in business, not about people, but processes. Then they can earn some respect, not toxic people, if that makes sense, but solution driven, even though it's the truth. They're not all regarded highly in businesses, but I think they're necessary. Otherwise we can groupthink, so who wants that? So I think it's good to have those kind of chief challengers around, but at the same point in time, managing up, and you'll hear it from the other angle. I serve in CEO peer groups and everything, and everyone's sort of like, how do I get people to do what I want them to do? It's like, and so sometimes they'll say, I'll have to pull information instead of, push information. And all CEOs that are at the top of the business want people to be able to just bring information up, and they don't want to have to pull it. And so if you think of it from a push-pull perspective, it's your responsibility in a way to give what it is that you want to give feedback by pushing it, not pulling it. And if you're pushing that information and you're doing it with respect and grace and tying it to the strategic imperatives of the business, I guarantee you'll be heard and valued, but you've got to do it with finesse. And that's the art of that. When I say it's like weaving, and you have to do it in such a way where you're not telling someone that they did it wrong. You're just saying how we could do it better, maybe.
Yeah, it's almost like you're protecting their egos while allowing them to learn. It's so easy to get defensive about some form of feedback if it's not consistent with who we think we are and who our egos tell us we are. And so if we feel like someone's challenging our ego, we automatically defend ourselves. But if we get this feedback in a way that doesn't challenge our feedback, it makes us feel like this is okay, that I could have made this mistake or I could have learned from this. It's a lot more palatable to accept that new information.
It's almost best to go in and pitch an idea and ask for their opinion, and then start collaborating with each other, so that when you walk in the room, you're not saying that the decision's already been done or you have all the information. You're coming in more with like a pitch and an idea, and you're seeking advisement, and then you're listening, and then you're integrating what you wanted to do with what they see. And next thing you know, you have a whole new product, and that's collaboration. That's true collaboration. We shared to create something new together. And I think if you can invite thought leaders to do that with you, wow, then we have a we operation. How fantastic is that? I think that's shared leadership.
Yeah, and I love that push and pull kind of component of that, because it makes me think about this idea of it's a lot easier for people to almost work off of each other when they know their professional goals.
Yes. Yes.
What do you
Well, if I know what you're about and you know what I'm about, we can hit the ground running. We can really, truly hit the ground running, especially if we're both looking in the same direction. And I think sometimes people who have expertise in whatever area, they love to play, if that makes sense. I think intellectual play is fun, and it's fun to collaborate and talk with other people about your ideas and see your ideas come to fruition and see the impact of your work. And so whenever you have something that you're trying to do, that goes back to what you were saying, Garrett. It's really good to find people that align with you and agree, and talk with them, and don't be afraid of sharing your ideas. I think that was really a good example of how it's really important to do that.
That's awesome. So I've got 3 final questions for you before we jump off. By the way, this has been so insightful. So I guess I want to ask the audience one question real quick that they can post in the comment section. What have you learned so far from Nicole that you feel like you would love to implement in your current workplace? And this could be either you as a people manager, this could be you as just an individual contributor. What have you learned from Nicole so far that you would love to implement with you at work? Post that in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that. But the final 3 questions I have are: 1, about how to not be a micromanager. 2, how does body language play a role in management? And then 3, your final biggest tip for any new manager.
Okay, so go back again. The first one.
Micromanage it. How do we avoid micromanagement?
How do we avoid micromanagement? Oh, that's easy. You got to trust. You got to let go. If you're somebody who really crosses T's and dots I's, you got to really challenge yourself and work to make sure that you ask yourself, am I trusting the people around me? And the only way to do that is to really let go. And set a standard about what you're expecting, be clear on your expectations, and then go disappear. I think if you come back a week later and somebody did something that you had hoped they would do, you gave them wings. And so I learned this the most interesting way. I literally started a business, right? And I'm an entrepreneur, and obviously CEOs that start their own businesses have their heads in all areas of their business, ideally. But then the trick of it is that once you start to grow and scale, you have to like get your head out of all of those areas. And I don't think it comes naturally to people, to be quite honest. I had the gift of a second child in 2016, and I literally knew this was my last child that I would have, and I wanted to enjoy it, because what's the point of not? And so I took maternity leave in my own business, if you can imagine that, Garrett. And so I went home to have maternity leave, and I left the keys to my kingdom, so to speak, with my team. And I just let them know, you can call me anytime, but I'm not going to be face to face with you. I'm nursing this child. I'm going to enjoy these 3 months, and don't burn anything down, right? And so I did that, and that came from a heart space, not a head space, right? So you live in your heart, ideally. And so when I did that, I learned. I came back, and everybody, even them, would have thought that I would have had to be here. And yeah, we had communications, but again, I didn't go face to face for meetings. When we showed up with the clients at renewal and contract renewal, and I hadn't seen some of them for months. Everybody renewed, right? And we finished the year in the black, and I worked less and we earned more. And I was kind of like, wow, it's about trust. It's about really giving the keys to people and believing in people. And if you can do that, you will grow. And then you'll see other people around you grow. It doesn't mean trust but not verify, as they say, right? You got to go verify, but give it room. And make sure the expectation is clear on the front end. But exactly. I think you can all let go. Right. You got to establish the standard. You got to establish the processes. If you're a manager, that's what you do. Remember? Then let the people apply themselves to what you created.
Got it. Second question, body language and management.
Body language. So I think I'm all about presence. And presence to me is more than just being present in the room. It's one of our service ideals at HR Boost. And I live that. I think I freak people out in the elevator, like I think it's really important. And if you want to be seen as a leader, not even just a manager, I think you have to always be aware of your energy, your presence, and what you're giving to the room versus what you're taking from the room. And so if you want to step up your body language, just think of, am I giving presence, heart, body, mind, in this moment? If my head is somewhere else but my body's here, I am not exercising presence. If my head is here but my heart is gone, I am not exercising presence. And presence is extremely important. Even when I speak, I learned years ago in a room, let's say I'm speaking in a room and I'm watching the audience, and any speaker that does that, you're gauging the energy in the room and body language. And you can literally see if people are engaged with you or not by how they're sitting. So somebody who's sitting and they're leaning back in their chair like this, and they're leaning back in their chair like this, does that give you energy, Garrett, or does it take it?
Takes it.
It takes it away from the room. And some people do it when they're tired, or they're on their phone, or they just get distracted. You have just taken energy away from the room. Not good. You want to be seen, you'll be forward. Some people lean forward, they're like right up in you, or your face, they're talking. And I think if you're giving that energy, even if you're quiet and you're listening, but I sit straight up and I lean forward with my hands on my knees, and I just kind of.
That's awesome.
It gives energy. It's inviting, it's approachable. It's really important to always be just cognizant and aware, tapped in with your presence.
Love that. And so the last question was the biggest tip, if there's any one tip you want any new manager to take away from this workshop, what is that?
Care.
Care.
Yeah, you got to care. There's a joke in my Vistage circles, which is you got to give it gas. Can you guess what that is?
No. What is it?
You got to give a shit.
You say that. Okay, what was the acronym one more time?
You got to give a shit.
Okay, you got to give a shit. Yeah, you can swear on this. That's okay.
Okay, I don't know if well, you know, never know who's listening, but right, you got to give it gas.
Yeah.
You got to give it gas. You got to care. The minute people stop caring is the minute you moved into a complacent relationship with whomever you're with, and that's the minute everything starts going downhill. That's cool. Instant in a relationship. I talk with leaders who work with each other and actually bite their tongue as they walk out of meetings and don't speak. It's the beginning of complacency. It's the beginning of not caring. It's the beginning of decline of your ability to be an effective leader.
Yeah, great point. Nicole, this has been awesome. You are a wealth of knowledge. I feel like everybody in our audience is going to really enjoy what you've had to say. This is fantastic. By the way, anybody who's watching this, if you've got any question for either Nicole or myself, post them in the comments section. I will work towards answering them within 24 hours of this video going live. But thank you all for being here. Nicole, thank you for being here. Last question, how can our audience find you? How can our audience connect with you, learn more about you, your books, your stuff, everything that you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm living my joy and purpose in my perfect little playground, my intellectual playground called HR Boost. And I definitely, and I'm an open networker, and I pride myself on being resourceful to people. So I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, just Nicole Martin. You can go to hrboost.com. My books are under nicolemartin.live. And I do a number of just speaking engagements tied to those things. And in different areas, that's not my bread and butter, it's my passion. So I think we all have like I said, be self-advocacy and share. There's not enough people who can be out there just speaking and talking about what they love and bringing positivity into the world and the universe. So, you know, I'm all about it. If I can help somebody in any way, just reach out. I'm a friendly gal. I'm neurotic. I check my emails, my texts, my LinkedIn messages. I'll get back to you. And definitely just any kind of questions. You never know how we can help one another, right, Garrett?
So true. So true. Nicole, thank you for being here. Everybody that's watching this, thank you for being here. Have a good rest of your night, and I look forward to seeing you in our next workshop. See ya.
Thanks, guys.